Voices, Learn from Legends. This series is a amalgam of sessions from the Self Reliance Festival's past. It's like Christmas past, you know. And for me, it's always entertaining because even when I'm there watching the session, I do not absorb the things I'm able to absorb by watching these videos. So I actually really love doing this. Now, today I'm joined by Bobby Spags, we just call him Spags, from Midwest Preparedness Project. And he's helping me co-host this, but he is also the source of the Great American Preparedness Tour. And when I first met Bobby, he was at EMP Shield, and we sat on the phone. We met virtually. He's one of my friends from the internet, and EMP Shield was talking about coming down to Self Reliance Festival to do a booth, and they, you know, and I was all nervous about the call because I'm like, I really could use the sponsorship this time. And I had John Willis on the call, and they were like, yeah, we'll do it. And they came down, and I think Tag spoke at that event, didn't he?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think he spoke at the next one.
The next one. So they came down, and they were just a high energy crew. So if you want to have positive energy at your event, you should have Spags speak. He will be the MC for Self Reliance Festival. So we have not announced that officially yet, but it's going to be announced, and I'm willing to share secrets to 200 people on the internet. So yeah, he'll be emceeing. I've handed that scepter to Bobby, and that frees me up to be able to talk to more people at the show. But he's also been a really great connector. So if you're ever when you're at Self Reliance Festival and you see Bobby, or when you're at Midwest Preparedness Project and you see Bobby, walk up to him. If you're like, you know, I've been really looking for somebody who knows how to do X, or I'm interested in this topic, he usually knows somebody. So, yeah. So he's very good at that, and he will pass off introductions. He's a way better follower-upper than I am as well, and just a good friend. So, just as a reminder, if you have questions, there's a Q&A button down at the bottom. Hit that. That helps me know you're asking questions. If you put the word question in all caps in the comment, I might see it. If you put it in that tool, I definitely have to check it off before we do that. And then, well, let's talk about the knife. Bobby, I'm going to go off script. You tell us about the knife, because I'm going to run out and get a knife and show it. So
okay,
you
that
go.
Sounds like a plan. So as Nicole mentioned, we kind of came up with this brainchild called the Great American Preparedness Tour. And the whole idea was to connect multiple preparedness and homesteading events across the United States into a tour that people could travel to throughout the year and get little tokens. And so there are 3 events on the tour this year. There is Midwest Preparedness Project, Self Reliance Festival, and Kentucky Sustainable Living. All of us have a poker chip. And the poker chips are not being sold. They're not something you can just go up to a table and pull out of a box. You have to approach one of the show promoters like myself or Nicole or a designee or Shelly over at Kentucky Sustainable Living, and you have to ask us for a token. And the idea is throughout the calendar year of 2024, if you go to all 3 of the events and you collect your token at all 3 at the end of the year, we send you a special Christmas present. Nicole, show us what it is. It is a...
I have to get this in the light better.
Yep. It is a special edition Mora knife, a 511 Mora that's going to be laser engraved with the Great American Preparedness Tour on the blade. And you will be able to put that into your kit and use it. Or if you're bougie, you can put it on a shelf and never let it rust. It's up to you what you do with it. But you get not only the 3 tokens, but you get the Mora knife sent to you at the end of the year.
Right. So that's I wanted to cover that on the webinar for those of you who are coming. If you want a Self Reliance Festival token, what you've got to do is find me or Don Sutton, who is usually at the information booth. And I may have another designee. I think I'll give some to Spags since you're there anyway. And ask us for one, and we'll hand it to you. And when you have all 3 collected, then that's the proof you need when it comes time to submit your application for the knife. And you don't have to collect these all in 1 year. So you can go to different festivals in different years. It's kind of like hiking the Appalachian Trail, right?
Yeah.
You can hike it all in one year, or you can section hike it. Same for the Great American Preparedness Tour. Like you can be like, I'm going to go to Midwest Preparedness Project in September. Self Reliance Festival is like 4 weeks later, too close. So I'm going to hit Kentucky Sustainable Living, and then next year I'll hit Self Reliance Festival. Does that make Nicole Sauce cry? Absolutely, because I'd love to see you at our event. But I'll get over it. And I understand that, people have realities of how much vacation time you have and that sort of thing. Yep. So, yeah. So that's what's happening. Today on the webinar, we're going to be hearing from Jack Spirko of the Survival Podcast, talking about how to build your empire while there's crumbles. But before we jump into that, I wanted to hand things over to Spags to say whatever Spags wants to say before we go into that.
That's dangerous, Nicole. You should know better by now, but I'll be nice. Welcome, everybody, for coming to the webinar. Thank you so much for taking a time out of your weekend to spend with a bunch of old fuds like us talking about preparedness on the internet. This talk is going to be very important. I think people need to take notes and to pay attention because, as I often say, every decision in life is an economic decision. And understanding how to potentially navigate the troublesome waters that are coming down the pipe all will rely on economics, whether that is your social capital, whether that is your material capital, your energy capital, any of that. You're going to have to be able to give and take in a way that benefits you and whoever you're dealing with mutually in order for that new economy, that counter economy, to come to light. So let's take some notes and let's listen to what Jack has to say. Don't forget that you'll be able to potentially win some Hollow Roast coffee tonight. You're going to get either 2 pounds of coffee or you're going to get 2 boxes of the K-Cups between a $35 and $45 value. If you win that, you'll have to be present tonight, and then you'll have to pick up in person at SRF. And that's all I'll say about the webinar tonight. Pay attention, strap on, and let's go get some knowledge.
The title of this talk is Build Your Empire While There's Crumbles. I think this is the 4th or 5th time I've done this talk. It's a little bit different every time, kind of like Nicole's underground networking. But I always start out from the same place. And that was a perfect intro for it because it really is about a better way. So in 2008, I did the first episode of Survival Podcast on a little bitty $20 MP3 recorder sitting on my lap. I didn't even have a microphone. And it started to transform me right away, and within a week or two, I knew I was going to turn it into a full-time occupation. I was going to walk away from everything. I set a target date of a year. It ended up being 18 months, but only because my partner in my other enterprise had been great to me, asked me to stay 6 more months. And in that time, somebody sent me an email with a link to a gentleman named Jeff Lawton doing a thing called Greening the Desert. And we're going to transition now. I'm actually going to talk about Bill Mollison, who became one of my first heroes. But what I want to do, I want to wake everybody up. Right, we had the nice soft music. Y'all are feeling all comfortable. Don't think I'm going to beat you up or anything. That's going to happen. So we need to wake you up. Some of the people around you, not you, but some of the people around you may have a hangover. So the better you do it, the more you'll hurt their head. So when Jeff starts a class, he always claps everybody in. And you rub your hands together, and he'll go 1, 2, 3, bam. So I'm going to do that. We're going to wake everybody up. Give the people with hangovers a headache. So clap really loud for me. Let's clap in, get excited. 1, 2, 3. All right. And I tell you that because the next thing I did when I heard about this permaculture stuff and I looked at what Jeff Lawton was doing in the desert was I said, hey, I can't bitch about Texas being too hot anymore. He's in Jordan. So I'm like, I got to find out about this permaculture stuff. I literally thought at the time it meant you planted a tree instead of corn. That's what I thought it was. And I found this old codger, Bill Mollison, right? And he said that every solution to every problem already existed, and I thought, this guy's crazy. But then he said something else. He said that the way he came up with all this shit is he was working in the forest, cutting down trees for a living, just destroying the forest. And at the same time, he was learning the lessons of the forest, and he decided this was insane because nobody that he worked with cutting down these trees could ever afford a house being built with the trees they were destroying. And all these men were killing all these trees for a pittance of a paycheck and would never realize the gain of the destruction that they were rotting. And he had 2 choices. I could stay in the forest say the hell with this and just live in the woods and let the forest be my teacher, or I could go back to civilization and fight the bastards. And I was like, oh, cool. This guy's a warrior. This is something I can get behind. And Bill became one of my heroes. And up to that point, being in the corporate world, being in business, striving to get ahead, building big companies, I had heroes that were billionaires. And I realized, like, I'm never going to do the things those billionaires do because I don't want to do those things. And I realized what a real hero was. A person that did a thing that I could actually do, but would inspire me to get off my ass and do it. And I started working really hard, and I immersed myself in permaculture. We're going to come at this from a permaculture perspective today, but this is not a permaculture presentation. But I did believe that every problem had a solution, and the solution was in the problem itself. And I immersed myself, and I spent, guys, hours and hours. There's a website you can go to, thesurvivalpodcast.com. Perhaps you've heard of it. But if you go to SRF at the end of it, /SRF, there's all kinds of resources for here. And you'll find a 150-page document that is a transcript of Bill Mollison, who's just a genius, just rolling for hours. I probably read that thing 18 times. 4 years later, I find myself on a stage in California, standing next to not Bill, because he couldn't be there due to his health, but Jeff Lawton, one of my heroes, Alan Savory, one of my heroes, Paul Stamets, one of my heroes, lecturing on a subject that I didn't know the square root of F all about 4 years earlier, and packing a room. I actually had people leave Joel Salatin's presentation to come to mine. And I was humbled by it. I was absolutely humbled by that. But it shows what you can do if you truly decide, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to make this thing happen. So it's with that mindset that I want to beat you up today. So just know that it's all good, tough love. But we are going to approach lifestyle design, which don't tell anybody. That's what the Survival Podcast is actually about. As a marketer, I was like, if I do the Lifestyle Design Podcast in 2008, no one will listen, and I'm competing with like Tim Ferriss and Gary Vaynerchuk, and they're going to win. So I'm like, how do I make this work? Well, I take my real passion of preparedness and I combine it with lifestyle design, because that's actually the way to do it. So it's not just how to save a bunch of money. It's actually how to build a resilient lifestyle. And as I found permaculture, I realized that zone-based design was the key to designing your life. How many people here would love to live like an intentional community someday, big vision, something like that, right? Just a few, right? How many people want a bigger homestead than you have, though? Like you want something big in your life. There's something big in your life you don't have. So what happens is the same thing that happens when you move in on a property. You move on a property, you finally get some acreage, and you plant like 9 million trees over there, and they all die because you have no support in for them. And you have no food because you don't put a garden in, because you're all focused on the big instead of the little that leads to the big. So when we teach permaculture classes, we say, walk out your back door. 1 foot out your back door. Look down. That's a square foot. Design that. Now look at every square foot that touches that, like a tile floor. Design that. Now look at every square foot that touches that. Design that. Now you're out to about a square yard. Now look at every square yard that touches that. Design that. Design your property that way. Makes sense, right? This is the place that you spend the most time. We call that zone 1 in permaculture. Do that with your life. Who here has a goal to one day be a millionaire? Anybody? All right. Some of you guys already are. Anybody here already a millionaire, willing to admit it? All right, we got one. Did you have to become like a 100-aire before you became a millionaire? So design that for a step. Design the things in your life that are closest to you first. Your family relationships. Design that first. Design the square foot outside your back door first. If you're going to build a business, design the core of the business first. You want a community, design the core of the community, which is you. So many people want it. I want a community. What do you bring it? An idea. No. Approach design solutions that way. Start at home. See and recognize and harness patterns. How many of you guys have listened to me for a while? Probably a bunch of you, right? How many of you guys, like, you turn the news on, you're like, you listen to like 3 seconds, you're like, bullshit. Yeah? Good, you graduated, right? That is pattern recognition. Because as soon as the words come out of the person's mouth, comma experts say, you're like, I've seen that before. But see and recognize these patterns in your life, because what will happen is you'll come to things like this. And like Nicole was saying yesterday, you listen to all these different speakers, even maybe it's something you know, but you hear this thing, and you're like, I never would have approached it that way. And I'm actually not going to until you get to that one point where something's not working, and now you have that's another blade in the knife that you can open and you can use. So see and recognize patterns. And never lose sight of the fact that problems are solutions. But there's something else that a problem is, an opportunity. When you see a problem, odds are somebody else has that problem. You know what people pay you to do? Solve their problems. So if you want to design business into your life, design it around solving problems for people. In my case, my business, the biggest problem that I solved was I would listen to the radio every day and I thought everybody on that radio sucked. And I told them they sucked. No one heard me. I was like, you suck. And finally, like, there was a voice in my head that said, hey, if they suck, then you prove they suck by doing it better. So I tried to solve the problem of I wanted talk radio, podcasting, to actually teach people and to inspire people and hopefully to make people laugh. By the way, you guys that are content creators, that's it. That's the secret sauce. Teach, inspire, humor. That's it. If you don't do those three things, I don't care how talented you are, I don't care how smart you are, if you can't make people laugh at least once in a while, you lose them. So I wanted to come at this with just a few areas in your life today instead of going deep dive into one of them. I wanted to start with food production. And I want to tell you what I've learned about food production because I'm what you call a permaculture masochist. Like, this is the worst property you could find to grow your shit. Let's buy that one. That's what I do. And I live in a place that's very hot, very thin soils, rock, shoal. When I say rock, I know some of you guys, you dig a garden and then you pull a rock out. I don't mean that. I mean slab. We don't have foundation problems where I live. Everybody around us does because of the clay soils. Our houses, they put a foundation in it, it never moves. It's a place that used to be the great inland sea, and it's a limestone shelf, and I have places where there's that much soil on my property. So if I tell you something works there, it'll probably work anywhere. Is Nick Ferguson in here? Nick, I told Nick I planted something, and he said, well, yeah, those things never die, but you planted it here. That's your problem, right? So the number one thing that I have discovered that you can produce for food at home, that's the easiest thing to produce on any land, is meat and animal products. So whether that's ducks and geese and chickens like we do for eggs, or it's browsing animals and ruminants like sheep or goats or cattle or pigs that you combine with pasture, that's the easiest thing to do. And it's where I recommend actually that you start just zone one design. What does a chicken need? What does a duck need? What does a cow need to not die? That's actually the first. You don't go Tractor Supply, bring all the little peeping chickens home and go, gee, what do we do? Which is what most people do, right? And then you can actually start to restore ecosystems. So I do have a slide deck here that I can't put up in here because of the lighting, but this is the actual one slide I wish you guys could see, because I am going to beat you up in a little bit about health and nutrition, Ken Berry style. But I also think that there's an ecological lesson in this. And it's what Ken was talking about yesterday for those that heard his talk about the megafauna that we lost here. The picture that I have on this screen is some of the camels that he was talking about that walk around here. And the biggest camel, the dude comes to his withers, the human scale size. And the eye of that camel is about the top of where a backboard would be on a full-size basketball goal. That's what walked around here. Those were ruminants. They lived on grass systems. And this is what humans ate, and it's what we should be eating. Even my wife, we were watching a show called La Brea, where these people ended up like traveled back in time like 12,000 years or something like that, and they're trying to figure out what plants to eat and stuff, and this giant sloth, like the size of an elephant, goes walking through, and she's like, eat that, stupid. Of course they didn't because it's Hollywood, right? But we're supposed to eat meat. But then there's another thing that happens, and you learned about it from Billy yesterday. Animals produce waste. Waste is compost. If it's lived, it can live again. Now we can build fertility even in a place like where I live. But we can also completely restore ecosystems. So I don't think I'm in a position where like a third of the people here are vegan like the last couple times I did this. So I don't have to be as gentle, but you cannot restore broad-scale ecosystems without ruminants. You can't do it. You can restore forest systems, but there are a lot of our climate type that are not supposed to be forest systems, they're supposed to be plains. And the plains in the United States were on the edge of death, and then we pushed it over when we wiped out the bison. If you look at the way the United States is, you have forest on both sides, east and west coast. And when I say coast, I mean like all the way in, including where we are in the mountains. And then you have the Great Plains going up the middle. If you look up historic bison migration routes, guess where the bison went back and forth? From Texas up into Western Canada and parts of Alaska and back down, back and forth. And they maintain that savanna system. The savanna ecosystem, or in our case, savanna mimic, which is what John's doing right there. The most productive soil building you can do. And we screwed this place up, North America, in a combination of things. Part of it was mankind removing the bison, but the other part was this great cataclysm that took away our megafauna. Humans didn't do that. But we're unique in that we can fix it. And we fix it with grazing animals. We fix it with pastured animals. That area John's working on right there, that was like rock, right? Like it was, and he's keep adding all these wood chips and stuff to it, but he's using the animals as well. Right now there's enough fertility there. If we all left, John left, moved somewhere else, and nobody touches that again, what do you think is going to happen to that piece of land right there? There's two things that can happen. One, there's enough fertility there and enough catchment there to keep everything from eroding, and the forest will just eat it. Or it will become a wash, and it will be a glade in a forest, but it will never be productive. Anybody ever walk through a forest, you see a place there's just nothing growing, and it's just because there's so much erosion, nothing can grow? Right? It's going to do one of those two things. My gut would be right now, the forest, there's enough fertility here, the forest would just eat this. And that's the way it's kind of supposed to be in the eastern and western United States unless we're settling it. But the center is supposed to be plains. How do we maintain those plains right now? Tractors, row crops, yeah. If we turn those into grazing systems, we'll restore all this stuff people are about, carbon sinks and whatever. The grasses in the Great Plains, they have root systems that go 30 feet deep, the perennial grass systems. How drought resistant is grass with a 30-foot root system? Pretty much like, we're good, but we need those ruminants. So just from an ecological standpoint, we need to be doing what John's showing you how to do right here. And you can do it on a small piece of property like this or a larger one. When it comes to your gardens and stuff, grow high ROI plants. Tomatoes and cucumbers and all, if you want to grow some because it's easy, do it. But what's expensive at the grocery store? Your mixed, yeah, asparagus, yeah, right? Mixed greens. Price organic or beyond organic mixed salad greens by the pound. It's very expensive. And that's like Kenberry approved. We'll get to that in a minute. Grow hardy perennials, herbs, wild things that require minimal management. If it's a weed and it grows on your property by itself, encourage it if it's useful and discourage it if it's not. It's basic gilding. Everybody thinks that gilding in permaculture is where we plant like these 9 plants together because the book said to. Funny thing about plants, they don't read books, they don't give a shit. Gilding is simply that we advantage that which we want to the disadvantage of that what we don't want, and we let nature take its course with our guidance. The other thing you want to do, grow climate appropriate, disease resistant annuals. I said like cucumbers can be easy to grow, but like if you live in a place like I do where like cucumber mosaic virus is just everywhere, grow the hybrids. Don't worry about the fact that it's not, that's not a GMO, guys. Grow the thing that's resistant or don't grow the thing at all. It really makes the most sense because that way you're not wasting your time. And barter and sell your surplus. So if you have a neighbor that's really good at growing something you can't, get it from them. Find something you can exchange. Everybody will take money, Bitcoin, etc., or whatever you can grow. But my big thing is take the surplus that you have and use it to generate income to buy what you can't produce or don't want to produce. Who here drinks coffee? Does anybody here live in the tropics? You're going to buy coffee. Get it from Nicole. She's going to buy it from the tropics, and she's going to roast it for you. But maybe Nicole doesn't want your tomatoes or your surplus beef or your surplus pork or your surplus chicken, but maybe your neighbors do, and they will give you money. And since Nicole likes money, she will send you coffee, right? Make even your hobbies pay for themselves. So I grow goldfish and koi and stuff like that. You could sell one goldfish for $50 a year and pay for all the feed for the rest of your fish. You just have to know marketing. You call it an Asian heirloom carp. You put it on Craigslist. You sell it to a yuppie. And you just bought, 100 pounds of fish food for the year. Like, think like that. I'm not saying to do that particular thing, but think that way. Money in banking. I know some of you, you think cryptocurrency is a scam, Bitcoin's a scam. It's been here over 10 years, guys. It's not going away. This is a good time to get involved. But all I want to do for this today is drive three things home. One, you should have some of your wealth held in Bitcoin, period. And you should learn how to get it off an exchange. That means don't let Coinbase or Strike or CoinX or Bittrex or whatever hold your money. Has anybody here heard, when it comes to cloud computing, there's no cloud? That's just your data on somebody else's computer? Yeah, you don't hold on an exchange. It's somebody else's wallet. The whole point is to be your own bank. That means you don't have a bank. That means you hold your own wealth. So get it off the exchange. But I also want to cover, how easy it is actually to do business because of something called the Lightning Network. And I owe Nicole money, so she's going to come up here, and I'm going to send her money two ways. First, I have, if I remember my own password, I have about $50 United States dollars in Strike, not in the form of Bitcoin. And Nicole, do you take Bitcoin?
I do take Bitcoin.
She takes Bitcoin. So I'm going to send her US dollars here, and I'm going to send her $50. Next, confirm. And that's a standard Bitcoin transaction, except that I didn't send Bitcoin. I sent US dollars, she's going to get Bitcoin. So there's no, evil capital gains to calculate in there or something like that, right? But she's going to wait about 10 minutes to get that Bitcoin. But now, I owe you more money than that, don't I?
Totally do. I
have to pay her, right? So I'm going to send her using Lightning. What else do I owe you? $70?
$70.
Okay, so you put in $70, not 70 Bitcoin, right?
I haven't put anything in there. It's just the QR. You put the amount in.
All right, I put the amount in.
You'll put the amount in.
So I'm going to send her.
I tried to get several $1 million in Bitcoin from him once.
70, done, pay. I have to put my code in. Okay, so now that $70 transaction she has right now, it's done.
Done.
She already has the money with Bitcoin. And the fee was about a penny, which you didn't even pay.
Right.
You got exactly what I sent her. For both of those things to happen, this is what you need. This is all I want to give you on Bitcoin today. The Lightning Network needs liquidity. The translation that means there has to be a certain amount of Bitcoin locked up in that network. We all know there's only 21 million Bitcoin. This is a way to do instantaneous cross-border transactions with no fees or very, very, very small fees. Who here runs a business and takes Visa, MasterCard, etc.? How much do those bastards take out of every transaction from you guys? 3%, right? So as a vendor, if you can, and by the way, when I sent her dollars and she got Bitcoin, I could have sent her Bitcoin and she could have got dollars, or I could have sent her dollars and she got dollars, or I could have sent her Canadian dollars and she got US dollars, or I could have sent her euros and she could have got US dollars. Because the transaction actually goes across the Lightning Network with Bitcoin, even if we're receiving different things on the ends. If you want to take 2% of the cross-border transactions in the world, you need about $500 billion locked up in Lightning. Guess how much the market cap of Bitcoin is right now? $500 billion. Bitcoin is the gas that makes all that work. So if you don't want to know any of the other stuff, here's the formula to build wealth with Bitcoin in your life. Stack sats and put yourself in a freaking coma. Just dollar cost average in. I had more on crypto, but that's all I'm going to talk about. I want to move on to healthcare. This is where we're going to get a little bloody. We'll start out with the bloody part, the proper human diet, and asking yourself a question if you're really healthy. I'm not picking on anybody. I used to weigh about 300 pounds. Everything I'm about to say used to apply to me, and I'm not 100% done yet. I'm not perfect. Drank some beers. I even ate some gummy bears yesterday, right? So I'm on vacation. It's okay to live a little. I did. I ate a gummy. I admitted to you I ate a gummy bear. But if I say anything you disagree with in the next couple sentences, you speak up. I want you to simply ask yourself a question, before we even talk about how diet plays a role in it. Are you healthy? And here's some ways you know whether you're healthy or not. When you wake up in the morning, within a minute or two, before you drink your coffee, are you coherent? Are you aware of what's going on? Can you respond to a threat? Can you get on with your life? Or do you need 10, 20, 30 minutes to like function in the morning? If you need 10 to 20 minutes before you can function in the morning, and I don't mean get along with your spouse, I mean function, right? I mean function, then you're not healthy. Because if your ancestors were that way, when they woke up in the morning and like, what the hell am I doing? Chomp, saber-tooth ate them. The natural state of the human being is to wake up and be able to function. Number two, when you stand like I'm standing right now and you look down, do you see your toes without sucking it in? And ladies, you know how you're endowed. You have to imagine that those things aren't there. Please don't take them away, but imagine they're not. If they weren't there, would you see your toes? Be honest. If you can't look down and see your toes, you're not healthy. I'm not getting into weights, measurements, tests. Those two things alone, you're not healthy. When you lay down at night, does every part of your body ache? Unless you were riding a bull that day or something, you're not healthy. And Ken already explained to you, you can reverse any of that not true? Anything you disagree with? All right, so he's a doctor. So he knows these things. So, real experts.
I am a biologist.
Right? All right. I would love it if they convinced me to come back next year, and they might, and I come back a year from now, for some of y'all to walk up to me and me not recognize you because of the transformation that's happened to you. I've had people walk up to me, and it's humbling every time it happens. They're like, dude, I didn't even recognize you at first. Like, if you find some old videos of me, you'll see how bad, and I was pretty good at hiding it with camera angles and stuff. It was bad. You're not non-brittle. You're not designing your life if you're not healthy. And I'll leave it at that. And the proper human diet is the way that you change that. And I don't care what your doctor says. I don't care what your doctor says. I don't care what your doctor says. One more time. I don't fucking care what your doctor says about what you should be eating. Living the way that we've been told to eat has resulted in the America that we have today. And we don't need it anymore. It's not helping us. I also think you should learn basic herbal medicine. I'll give you a book. My favorite book is called the Herbal Medicine Maker's Handbook by a gentleman named James Green. Again, if you go to thesurvivalpodcast.com/SRF, that's there along with everything else. Basic herbal medicine, to me, is a human right that we've lost. We should know what plants can help us. The way I got started in herbal medicine, I was a little bitty kid. And my grandfather, I don't remember how he did it, but he like slivered off like the inside of one of his fingers. It looked like somebody took like a potato peeler and just sliced it off the inside of his finger. And he went down to the garden. He picked up 2 different leaves. One was plantain and one was comfrey. He put it on his finger and he wrapped a bandage around it. And 2 days later, I watched him take that bandage off and a little scab just slid off there. And I was like, my grandfather's a sorcerer. And you tell this to a doctor, an unenlightened one anyway, and they say, oh, it doesn't do that. Who here's used comfrey to heal a wound? And who here's seen the difference that it makes, right? Like, see, every hand that did it went back up. That's a basic thing. Now, this book I'm recommending for you costs about $30. It's a college-level course in herbalism. Go through it, learn how to do a tincture, learn how to do an extract, and you'll realize, like, you could stop looking for a recipe when it comes to this stuff. Do you think your ancestors that figured out if I chew this thing up and stick it on this wound, it heals, were like, well, make sure you chew exactly 47 grams for exactly 13 seconds, and then you hold it at an obtuse angle to the sun for 14 seconds, and then weigh it with a virgin's thighs, and then place it on the wound. No, they went, hey, you chew this shit up and throw it on there, and it works. And so people ask me when we make our comfrey staff, how much do you put in there? About that much. Well, why? Because that's how big the little mini crock pot is. So how much fat do you add to it to do the extraction? as much as fits and covers the comfrey, and then I set it on low, and the next day we drain it, add some beeswax, pour it into a container, and let it get hard enough. And I learned something recently. I had a guy on my show, and my wife and I are going to start making our salves this way. He does skincare products using pork lard, and it makes perfect sense. Now, we did learn that if you put the pig lard on before you put other things in it and some Sentinel, that you smell like bacon. It's not terrible. But who here's ever made a salve with olive oil? Right? Have you noticed that, like, when you put that salve on, like an hour later, you're still glistening? And that's because your skin's only so good at sucking up olive oil. It's not, olive oil is not a bad fat, but it's not your fat. Do you know what happens when you put a salve made with pork fat on? It goes like right into your skin. So that would be the one thing I would add to this book, is make sure you switch to using an animal fat. And pork's about the closest to humans.
All right, we interrupt this show for an important announcement. I understand that Donald Trump was in Nashville, Tennessee today at a Bitcoin conference and announced that if he is elected president, he is going to use Bitcoin as some of the reserves. Anyway, I thought about that when I saw that Bitcoin statement, just that transaction. I'd forgotten we did that in the middle of the presentation, but yeah. And as a result, Bitcoin is, becoming more attractive to people, because I think a lot of people think he's going to get elected. Those of you watching this webinar on any of the YouTube or Facebook or it's not Library, it's Odyssey channels that we have going on, I wanted to let you know that in a few minutes, we are going to turn off the feed to the live stream. And if you want to see the rest of it, what you need to do is go to selfreliancefestival.com/webinar and scroll down the page, and it's going to ask for your name and your email, and then you will get an automatically generated email with the link to the Zoom. So join us on the Zoom. Yes, you do need to log into your free Zoom account to get into this one. And you'll see the rest of it. And that also means that you will be present to win the drawing at the end, which is for Hollow Roast Coffee. You need to pick it up in person in Camden or send one of your friends to do the same. Somebody did that last time. That counts as picking it up in person. Just saying. Okay, so we put together a poll for you to fill out, and we'll talk while you're sort of thinking about this. So the question that we're wondering from y'all today is, which area of your life do you most need to build right now to be more resilient, to be more able to weather whatever comes and whatever that looks like? Choose your answers there, and then we'll look at that in a little bit. I did want to remind you that we launched digital passes, so if you can't come to Camden in person, get your butt to Camden. You can do it by video stream, which the lovely Rebecca is overseeing. She's here. She's waving to you up above. And those tickets are at selfreliancefestival.com. And also, early bird tickets pricing will go up to $75 at midnight, August 1st, which is Thursday. So if you decide you want to come to Camden, $50 gets you 2 full days of sessions, all the demonstrations, access to vendor row, and you can rest at camp if you want to keep your costs down and not rent a hotel or something. That's all there. We've got a cool outdoor shower and a campground, and some people have actually put together some pretty slick campsites recently. So Spags, you missed the last one, right?
I did, unfortunately. I was there in spirit.
You were there. So Kiri, who is, I think, here today watching, they brought this like fireball thing, and they were shooting fireballs like 20 feet up into the air, which was super fun. But they put together their own like really comfortable campsite. And I told people it's a fire poofer made by Glenn. Yes, there she is. And it was that thing's really fun.
Crazy.
So I was at a party at SOE a couple weeks ago, and I believe a flamethrower was going off right outside my camper. So it'd be like, daylight in the camper, not daylight in the camper, daylight in the camper. It was really fun. So we have a good time in the campground, sitting around the fire, talking, and it's just a good time. So anyway, tickets are at selfreliancefestival.com, and those of you on the live stream, this is your last reminder. If you want to see the rest of this webinar, head over to selfreliancefestival.com/webinar. So, Bobby, remember when we used to call it the Three Sisters of Prepping?
We did. And now it's the Great American Preparedness Tour, but it's the exact same thing. And a good point to point out here is there is a website called thepreparednesstour.com. If you have any questions about how to get tickets or where any of the three different shows are having their events, if you go to thepreparednesstour.com, that'll take you to the Great American Preparedness Tour's website, and you can go and find Midwest Preparedness, Self Reliance Festival, and Kentucky Sustainable Living, and you can click on the logo, and it takes you directly to their website where you can buy your tickets and get all the information on where the locations are at, the speakers, all that stuff.
Yeah, thanks for putting that together. That's pretty cool. I think we're going to let people fill out the poll a little bit longer. There are lots of choices here. It'd be interesting to see where people think they need to improve the most. This is the Great American Preparedness Tour website, in case you've never seen it. Just go ask Alice, right?
That's right. I love this poll. This poll, if people are honest about it, especially people who are not 20 anymore, I think that physical fitness one at the bottom, that's what I would have chosen. It wouldn't let me click the field for some reason. But that's what I'm working on personally this year is physical fitness because, man, let's face it, at 45, I'm halfway done, which means I've hit the peak, and I don't want it just to be a steamroll to the bottom. And so myself, today is day number 20. I'm on an alcohol fast and pop fast. I've had no booze for 20 days now. Had no pop. I had one pop today when we were at Subway because it was my cheat day, but it was really about the beer and about the whiskey. And I love beer and I love whiskey. But what Jack said in that thing about when you wake up, are you cognizant? He's not wrong. For people like me who are military, who just got used to drinking every single night, no matter what, you get a brain fog and it hits you and you start to realize, man, I'm being snappy. I'm angry when I shouldn't be, or I can't remember what I said 2 hours ago. Man, I've lost 15 pounds in the last 20 days. I'm up to 5 pull-ups on the pull-up bar. I would encourage you to listen to what he has to say about being able to look down and see your toes. It's kind of nice not having that constant bloating, that brain fog. So yeah, I think we should definitely pay attention to what he's saying there. And I think that would be my answer to your poll.
Okay, well, I'll have to increase it by some fraction of a percent.